Hello everyone, Donut here, and today we're going to analyze a tweet by the one and only Sean King. The tweet that we're going to take a look at has to do with the shooting that we looked at yesterday where the 17-year-old Charles Smith Jr. was shot and killed by the North Little Rock Police Department. If you haven't seen my video from yesterday, I suggest you go take a look at that before you get any further into this video. It's going to help with explaining what we're talking about in this one. If you don't really care enough, then here's the Cliff Notes version. A 17-year-old was pulled over by police. He pulled a gun on police. He tried to shoot 3 police officers, and the police officers ended up shooting him and killing him. In response to this shooting, Sean King tweeted out, "Police in Little Rock, Arkansas shot and killed 17-year-old high school senior Charles Smith Jr." That is correct. He was a beloved son and student pulled over by police for a routine traffic stop. Friends say that the stop was classic racial profiling. Sean put a nice little picture of Charles right here. It's him hanging out in class, smiling. Said he was beloved by his family and friends. I have no doubt, but this wasn't an innocent little 17-year-old black male pulled over by police and shot for no reason. I don't really understand why people get upset when I put criminals' histories into my videos along with the shootings, because I think that has a lot to do with who that person really is. So before we get any further into this video, let's take a look at Charles Smith Jr.'s history. Smith was awaiting trial for 3 robberies that he had committed. 2 of those robberies, he beat people over the head with his gun. One of those robberies was at a Subway restaurant where Smith hit some poor fast food worker making minimum wage in the head with his gun. In another robbery, Smith pistol whipped the manager of a Pizza Hut in the face. On top of the 3 robberies that he was being charged with, he was suspected of committing 8 other robberies in 7 counties. My point is, Sean can paint this picture of this innocent 17-year-old black male all day long, but the truth is he had been suspected in a lot of robberies and was even charged with 3 of them where he pistol whipped people. In the end, he tried to shoot 3 police officers and ended up being killed for it. It is no one's fault but his own. The next part of Sean King's tweet says 32 people killed by American police already in 2018. This tweet was 2 days ago. Today it's actually 35 people killed by American police in 2018, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. The cool thing about having this little thinker up in your head is that you can do your own research instead of listening to just some random dude on the internet. Hell, that includes me. If I say something and you think it sounds unreal, go research it. Let me know if I'm wrong. Please, please, for the love of God, call me out if I'm wrong about something. So 35 people killed in 2018. Let's break it down. January 1st, Mark Parkinson was shot by police after someone called and said that there was a female inside of his home willing to hurt herself and her children. A deputy arrived on scene, went up to the house, saw Parkinson inside of the home, announced that he was a sheriff's deputy. Parkinson pointed a weapon at him. The deputy shot and killed Parkinson. January 1st, 16-year-old Derek Staten was struck by an officer while crossing a road. Maryland State Police stated that after a preliminary investigation, Derek may have made a pedestrian error. January 1st, Archie Lawhon III shot and killed 2 people. He was approached by deputies. Deputies asked him to drop his gun multiple times. He wouldn't drop it and he was shot. January 1st, Gary Johns shot his wife in the chest and was chasing her down the street while still shooting at her. Deputies arrived on scene and killed him. I'm doing this in order also. I'm not skipping any of them, but on January 2nd, an off-duty officer was attacked by a shoplifter with a knife. He shot and killed him. January 2nd, Shayna Musquiz was trying to steal a child when deputies arrived on scene. She shot at police. Police returned fire and killed her. On January 2nd, Ronald Elliott had locked himself inside of his room with a gun. A female tried to disarm him. A deputy arrived on scene. Witnesses say that they heard the deputy say drop the gun before the deputy fired on him and killed him. On January 2nd, police were trying to serve court papers to Lewis Miller when he rushed at police officers with a knife and he was shot and killed. On January 2nd, Orestes Amador Jr. was in a crash with some police officers. He ended up dying. The police officers are in stable condition. An investigation is ongoing into the crash, but it just looks like a random vehicle collision. On January 3rd, Shaleem Tyndall and another man got into a fight. A gun was pulled. One of the men was shot. An officer arrived on scene, asked the person who was holding the gun to drop it. He didn't drop it. He was shot and killed. On January 4th, 28-year-old Brandon Cood had gotten into a traffic accident with someone. Deputies arrived on scene. They ran him for warrants. It turned out he had 2 felony warrants for sexual abuse against a child. He pointed a shotgun at deputies sometime during the incident. Deputies shot and killed him. January 4th, Robert Hansen was shot after being pulled over by police and brandishing a handgun at them. January 5th, Andy Vo held 2 Holiday Inn employees hostage with a gun. Police arrived on scene, ended up shooting and killing him. January 5th, Letteron Mixon was wanted in connection to selling fentanyl-laced heroin, the stuff that's killing thousands of people across the country. Police were executing a search warrant. Letteron pointed a gun at them. He was shot and killed. January 5th, police were dispatched to a burglary in progress. When they arrived on scene, William Olson pointed a gun at them. Police shot and killed him. On January 6th, suspect Gregory Stowe was on a traffic stop. He had multiple warrants for his arrest. He ended up backing his car up and crushing an officer. He was shot and killed by police. On January 6th, reports Tyler Miller had gotten into a fight with a federal agent after a traffic accident. The federal agent was wounded. They are saying that Miller was unarmed, but he was shot by the federal agent and killed. January 6th, John Balin was being investigated by deputies for a stolen vehicle. Balin had a long criminal history, including assault on a police officer and felon in possession of a firearm. During the altercation with deputies, one of the deputies opened fire and killed Balin. Balin's had 4 arrest warrants at the time of his death. On January 6th, deputies were responding to a domestic violence when Guillermo Mendoza pointed a gun at them. He was shot and killed. January 6th, police were responding to reports of a domestic violence. When they arrived on scene, they found Jackie Roberts sitting inside of their vehicle armed with a handgun. They told them to drop the handgun multiple times. That's when Jackie started waving it around, and police ended up shooting and killing him. January 6th, police received calls of a man attacking his family with a baseball bat. One of the officers found the man walking down the road. The man attacked the officer with a baseball bat, was shot and killed. January 6th, Richard Rangel was breaking into cars when he was confronted by officers. He pulled a gun and shot at officers. Officers returned fire and killed him. January 7th, Richard Towler shot and killed his wife. Officers arrived on scene. He shot through the door at officers. A standoff happened, and he ended up being shot and killed by officers. January 7th was the incident between North Little Rock police officers and Charles Smith Jr. that we've been talking about. January 7th, police responded to calls of a man pointing a gun at somebody and stealing their book bag. Police arrived on scene. They spotted Trayvon Mitchell running through a parking lot armed with a gun. A short foot chase took place, and the man was shot and killed by officers. January 7th, an unnamed man pointed a gun at someone and stole their belongings. Police were called to the scene and set up a perimeter. Police ended up finding the man. They shot and killed him, and a gun was recovered on scene from the man. On January 7th, police responded to a disturbance involving Alejandro Valdez, who had been threatening his family with weapons. Police arrived on scene, set up a perimeter around the home, tried to call Valdez out. He came out with a knife in each hand. Less than lethal weapons were fired at him. They did not work. He continued to approach police. He was shot and killed. January 7th, police responded to calls of a domestic disturbance. When officers arrived on scene, an unnamed man was threatening a woman with a knife. Police shot and killed him. January 7th, firefighters were attempting to put out a burning home when they saw a man crawling on the grass outside of the home with a rifle. Police arrived on scene. The man exchanged gunfire with police. He was shot and killed. Neighbors say that the man appeared to be intoxicated at the time of the shooting. January 8th, a man who was wanted for several ATM robberies approached an on-duty officer and tried to rob the officer. The officer identified himself. The man ran off, jumped into his vehicle, rammed another police vehicle who was arriving on scene, ran from police. When police finally called up to him, he fired shots at police. He was shot and killed. January 8th, deputies approached a wanted man who was sitting in a vehicle. The man reached for a gun. Deputies shot and killed him. January 8th, a traffic stop was initiated on an unnamed man. The man bailed out of his vehicle. Police officers chased him. He pointed a gun at officers. Officers shot and killed him. January 8th, a man crashed into multiple vehicles. LAPD arrived on scene. An altercation took place. LAPD ended up shooting and killing the man, and a gun was found on the man. This one is still under investigation. All the details have not been released. January 9th, police responded to an intruder at a power plant. The man was walking around with an axe. He refused to drop the axe. He was shot and killed by police. This one is still under investigation also. An official report hasn't been released. The name of the man hasn't been released, but I think it's safe to assume that an altercation took place with the man with an axe and police, and that's what led to him being shot. Last but not least, yesterday a man was shot and killed by police after robbing a cell phone store with 3 of his buddies, 3 of whom were believed to be armed. This is another incident that is still under investigation. An official report hasn't been released yet. People on Twitter and people on social media can keep putting this shit out there all they want that, 32 people, 35 people have been shot in 2018. But look at what happened and why they were shot. It doesn't take a genius to figure out the common theme between all these. Anyways, everyone, this is Donut. Don't believe everything that you see on the internet about these mean old police officers running around killing everyone. There are over 40 million interactions with police officers every year. Less than 1,000 people are killed by police officers in a year. That's like 0.006% of the people who come into contact with police are shot and killed. As you can see from this video, if you don't run from police, fight police, shoot at police, go at police with a knife, an axe, a hammer, there's a good chance that you're not going to get shot by the police. Please have a fantastic day.
No.